Welcome to Bad Gear, the show about the world's most hated audio tools. There are synth manufacturers who refuse to reissue their famous instruments in true analog form. Korg is not among them. Today we are going to talk about the MS-20 Mini. This 2013 shrink-rate official clone of Korg's late 70s, early 80s classic and semi-proprietary 2004 MIDI controller lookalike is not only based on the iconic design language and comes with a name that makes it suspicious to the FBI, but it also raises the question whether the whole analog revival thing was a mistake after all. At the first glance, the Mini is ticking 86% of all boxes. Even without a reference point for scale, the ramshackle Mini keys and mini jack patch panel are clear indicators that this is not your daddy's MS-20. While the latter isn't necessarily a bad thing in a synth world defined by Eurorec, a full-sized main output and input for the external signal processor would have been nice. And there are other limitations for modular addicts we will talk about in a minute. Inevitable 2010s miniaturization aside, there are many similarities to the original, mostly conventional, yet PWM-less monosynth architecture, with unnecessarily cryptic labeling, basic waveforms, including noise, and the ring modulation misnomer we know and love. When it comes to the filter, things become a little more interesting. Sure, the combined low-pass, high-pass array is well known even to the less initiated, but depending on the generation of old-school MS-20, Korg implemented different filter types that still lead to heated online arguments to this day. Early models were shipped with the legendary Korg35 filter, while later revisions are based on a more vanilla design. In this particular case, the manufacturer went with a 35, resonant 6 dB high-pass, 12 dB low pass, both capable of self-oscillation, allowing for the famous Batmanization of your tone. The envelopes are similarly quirky, a DAR1 with a fixed sustain stage internally routed to pitch, plus an HADSR pre-patched to volume and filter. I am no expert on original MS-20 peculiarities, but according to Sound on Sound, the modulator behavior of the Mini deviates from that of its ancestors. You will have to make do with one LFO. As expected, this architecture allows for both smooth vintage synth tones and gnarly analog punk. Of course, this is just a fraction of what MS-20s are capable of. There are quite a few features only accessible via the patch panel, namely inverted envelopes, pink noise, LFO pulse, sample and hold, a patchable VCA control wheel, and momentary switch assignment, and the aforementioned external signal processor, which turns the unit into a barely usable guitar synthesizer. Hertz per volt and S-Trig standards are authentic, but might also lead to disappointment among Eurorec aficionados. It's enough for creating interesting sounds that wouldn't work in a track though. There's a USB port and one lonesome MIDI in on the back panel, which are limited to velocity-less note-on-off messages. All this sounds pretty okay for a reissue from the dawn of the analog revival, but the Mini also comes with what is considered to be a deal-breaker by many synthesists. First of all, there is significant noise leakage even with the oscillators turned off. and build quality is worse than that of a 90s Behringer mixing console. The former isn't that much of an issue for me given the sounds I have in mind, the latter can be quite a buzzkill. Pricing is very 2013, so thanks to Klangfarbe for lending me one of their floor models. The little MS-20 is almost a decade old and the synth market has changed profoundly since then. Can it still compete with the abundance of affordable analog alternatives, and is it worthy of its legacy? You have already heard the Mini in today's intro tune. That hit harder than it should have. Let's treat it like a normal analog mono synth in the first jam. Okay, we're deep in MS-20 territory with a mix of smooth tones and barely controllable filter resonances. That being said, the responsive analog controls are compromised by the wobbliness of the knobs and crappy keyboard. I wanna know if we can expand its sonic vocabulary with some external modulation magic. That stirred for days, and controlling the synth with a BeatStep Pro worked great after setting it to the right standard. I was struggling with a much discussed noise issue when experimenting with different patches. Time to find out if we can turn noise into art in this wildly wailing white whale of words. The MS-20 Mini might not only be mistaken for the original in a quick Instagram shot, but it is also capable of recreating some of the vintage synth flavor. However, while its ancestor is an unruly beast in the best sense of the word, the Mini comes with a few additional quirks I could totally live without. Cramped front panel, subpar build quality and a noise-infested signal path add to the classic idiosyncrasies like strange re-trigger behavior and the inflexible patch panel in an unpleasant way. It is fascinating how the synthesphere has evolved over the last 10 years. I can't wait to see what our 2030 selves will think about today's shenanigans. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to like, subscribe, become a patron and leave a comment what other kind of gear you would like to see and hear on the show. Thanks to all my patrons for supporting the channel, and welcome to the monthly vocoder shoutouts. Synthesizing actual speech with a teenage engineering choir, while theoretically possible, isn't easy. I added a few modifications to make all this a little more convenient. It still is quite a challenge to play, so please cut me some slack. Tier 4. PXPT Silicon Clean Rock on its cone Merle Presavi Lansky Though not defend my DJ Van Diagram
the pyramids. And you are Marinas who I've won. Fairy Delahaye.
Tier 6. Leave a comment if you have figured out which technology I'm using here.
Pretty naive. Get over me,
Again, thank you so much for supporting the channel. See you next month.